Cracking peeps, T-Money up in the heezy, reporting for Body Bags. I believe the week is 229. Here to bring you a free-for-all review of one of my favorite slasher films from the early 80s. We have Hell Night. Now, those of you guys who are a big fan of this film know that it took a long-ass time to get a nice release from Scream Factory. The DVD was highly sought after, highly out of print. And we just didn't know whether or not we were going to get our release, because really now the majority of the films that genre fans are wanting from horror have been released. So it's like when we get something new now, it's kind of like the gems there aren't very many left. So that's a good thing. But very happy to say that we got a nice release here from Scream Factory. I will say the picture quality and some of the additional footage that they got is subpar, but I guess there's nothing they could do about that. So we'll have to just deal with that, and that's okay. I mean, there's new interviews in this from, I think, the director, from Linda Blair. Don't quote me on that. I know there's one with Linda Blair I watched, but some good supplemental material I'd say this is probably definitely the best edition of the film we have to date. Although, I still kind of like my Anchor Bay copy that I got at a pawn shop for cheap, so I'm definitely going to hold on to that. But happy to have this for sure. The film is directed by Tom DeSimone, who also did The Concrete Jungle, co-director of Savage Streets with Danny Steinman, director of Friday 5. There were also some other films that they mentioned. Angel 3, The Final Chapter, and Reformed Schoolgirls. I'm not really familiar with those films. It's executive produced by one of the producers from Halloween. I'm not sure which one. Or the executive producer of Halloween, I think, served on as a producer for this film, or vice versa, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I heard. It stars Linda Blair, who plays the character of Marty, Vincent Van Patten, who plays the character of Seth, Peter Barton, who plays the character of Jeff, and Kevin Brophy, who plays the character of Peter. Essentially, what you have here is I'll read you the back, like I always do. So you've got, as an initiation rite into Alpha Sigma Rho fraternity, 4 pledges must spend a night in Garth Manor, 12 years to the day after the previous resident murdered his entire family. 2 of the pledges, Marty and Jeff, ignore the rumors that the now deserted mansion is haunted by a crazed killer until one by one, members of their group mysteriously disappear. Could this be part of a fraternity prank, or is it demented former tenant seeking revenge? Find out. Watch the movie. When this seemingly innocent night turns deadly, these college students will do anything to survive Hell Night. So there you have it, guys. Perfect. I mean, it is so... The story is just, people who love, myself included, like fans of slasher films, for me, it's got all the tropes. It's got everything you need. It's got the dilapidated mansion, the crazed killer, the mongoloid killer, the college kids, or the young teens or whatever that are cool and not too annoying. It's just got everything. The good kills. I mean, it's packed with everything you need. Now, one thing that I would say about the film, and I'll go into more of the things that... There aren't many things that I dislike about it, but I do feel like the length of the film is a little bit too long. If they had trimmed some things out here and there, some of the filler, some of the sequences, I think are just shot, they go on too long. If they trimmed it up a little bit, tightened it up, it would be a perfect film. Well, not perfect, but great. A great one. But I do feel like it is a good slasher film that definitely deserves the recognition that it's been getting lately. So, from 1981, the cast stars... So, I'll get into what I like about the film now. What I love the most about the film is the atmosphere and the set design. The mansion Garth Manor is just primo. Like, just, for me, I love a slasher film. I love a monster movie. Anything a horror movie that's set in a mansion, with big pearly gates out front, or just Victorian gates and candles, and the gothic mansion feel is just perfect. And it's also, it borrows that set design, I think, from the earlier films, gothic horror films, but it also puts a new, like, an 80s spin on it. So, perfect setting for me. The wardrobe is great. The characters are dressed as in Halloween costumes because it's Halloween. And so you've got, Linda Blair dressed as some sort of, like, I forget what it is. Maybe she's got, like, this Victorian red dress, and then Vincent Van Patten, who plays the character of Seth, is dressed as like Robin Hood or Peter Pan. And it's just so the set design is perfect. Like you've got the Halloween setting, which allows them to dress that way in this, and it goes very well with the setting of the film. The monster effects in the film are excellent. What I like about this film is it's kind of a fusion. I like using the word fusion lately, of different subgenres of the horror film. You've got aspects of the ghost story, the haunted mansion. You've got aspects of the slasher film, certainly most primarily. And then you've got, what else? The monster movie, because while it's not so much of a Michael Myers humanized, but it is kind of type slasher film than it is more of like a mongoloid monster movie type slasher. So you could say it's like Jason, but I think it's kind of balanced equally in terms of its taking influence from monster movies of the 50s and 60s, and also like the Jason Voorhees mongoloid type character, because you can definitely tell when the creatures in the film or whatever, the mutated children are revealed. You can tell the monster effects are a lot like films from monster movies from back in the day. Let's see. So what else did I have here? The story is great. So the story is set up perfectly because the film, I think I read the synopsis, right? So as they are going into, as the four pledges are being led into Garth Manor, the character of Peter Brophy, is it Peter Brophy? Kevin Brophy, who plays Peter, is telling them the story of the history of Garth Manor. And he tells them that this man went crazy, was always trying to give birth to a normal child, but he kept giving birth to these deformed children. So in his rage, he murdered his whole family, but the boy in the family was never found. So it just sets it up perfect for the mystery, and I don't really know where I'm going with my train of thought there, but it's a great classic story. I mean, and I love how they tell it as they're entering the mansion. So you're introduced to the history of Garth Manor and kind of the mystery of it, and it leads perfectly to your reveal of the killers that are in fact living underneath the mansion, or killer, should I say? I don't want to give too much away, but one thing that I will mention, I guess, so the kills are great. There's beheadings, there's spear impalings, there are people getting thrown off buildings, there are hangings, just all kinds of cool 80s slasher stuff. So for me, the special effects were great. The mechanical effects in the film were great. Got to note that because so it's a prank, right? So before it's revealed that there is actually this murderous monster on the rampage in Garth Manor, the sorority leaders are playing pranks on the pledges, and they have all these like traps set up inside of Garth Manor, like one effect with like this mechanical ghost that appears in the castle. It's just like, how the fuck did these college kids rig such like what's the word? Thorough traps, I guess. Just like amazing, but it's a movie, so whatever. But the mechanical effects and the set design are amazing in this movie, and it's kind of something that's fresh too, because like I said, it incorporates all different genres of the film. So you've got the haunted house, which is perceived, but then when the the real threat is introduced, it's like, okay, so that's on the back burner. That's just a joke, but I don't know where I was going with that. But now, so we'll say, let's see. So I guess there's only a couple things that I really dislike about the film, or not dislike, but I felt like Linda Blair's performance was really hokey, and I think she did like an amazing job as a child actor in The Exorcist, but honestly, as an adult actor, the films that I've seen her in, especially this one though, I think her worst performance is actually in this movie, in my opinion. It's just like, it just kind of seems like out of place, like she's almost like miscast. But your other characters, on the positive note, I love the character of Seth, played by Vincent Van Patten. He's just this awesome, like, let's get laid and do drugs and have a good ass time type teenager. Like, the characters are very likable in the film, except of course the sorority and fraternity leaders, who are the assholes who are playing the pranks. But you want to hate them. That's the idea, and that's fine. But your main pledges are great, and with the exception of, I think, a lackluster performance, or not even lackluster, just kind of a weak I really do feel like Linda Blair was miscast for the role, but at the same time, there's something there's some charm in it, and the way that she looks, I think is great in that red dress, for the whole feel of in the mansion and everything. But her acting specifically was kind of weird. Something was just off. I don't know. I may be crazy thinking that, but that's how I felt. I also want to mention the film reminded me a lot of the modern film Lost After Dark. And it also reminded me of Humongous, which was recently released, I think, by Scorpion or Code Red. In the sense that your killer is like this monster, and then the whole setting of Lost After Dark was very, be it in a farmhouse, this is in a mansion, it was very similar. And I love that sort of slasher setting, for sure. So, other than the film dragging on a little bit too much, like this review is now, and the so-so acting, mediocre acting, and maybe there could be a few more kills, I really don't have too many complaints about the film itself. I loved it. I love the characters. I love the story. I love the setting, like I said a million times now. So check this movie out if you haven't seen it. Definitely highly recommend it. You can grab this from Scream Factory for around $20 now, and I would get it. So highly recommend it. Also, I do want to mention one last thing. The ending is a little bit confusing. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's almost like the story that the character of Kevin Brophy Peter tells the pledges was incorrect in the mythos of what actually happened, because there's this reveal at the end of the film and you're like, wait a second, what's going on here? But I don't want to spoil anything, so just keep that in mind when you watch the film at the end, that I think the best way to interpret it is that the story, it's a legend, right? So not all legends can be completely accurate. So keep that in mind when you're watching the film, and then that'll maybe shed some light on any confusion you might have. So that's my review for Hell Night from 1981. I'm going to wrap this up now, guys. Have a great night. Check this movie out if you haven't seen it, and you should enjoy it if you love slasher films. So have a great one, guys. I'll catch you next week on Body Bags for Horror Lies. Peace.